Hello, one and all, and welcome to another thrilling episode of American Government. Today, we are going to talk about how the colonies got started by the English settlers over on the northeast coast of America. They were settled by this country here, England, and while people already did live there, for our purposes of American government, we are going to trace our heritage back to the English people that came over and the traditions that they brought with them. Now, we talked about that a little bit already with the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights. Today, we're going to talk about how the people actually set up their towns and set up their governments. To start with that, let's talk about what a colony is. A colony is a group of small settlements, so groups of houses, small towns that are owned by a parent country elsewhere. You have probably heard the term mother country or fatherland before, kind of referring to where people come from. And the parent country oftentimes sets up a colony, sets aside some land for some settlers to go to make some money, and then usually pay some money back in taxes to the motherland. The English settlers brought with them their traditions that had been set up for a few hundred years. And even some of the names. We talked in the last lesson about King James. Well, the first permanent English settlement in America was named after one of the King Jameses. Jamestown was settled in 1607. And while there were other settlements, you probably have heard of Roanoke before, where all the people mysteriously disappeared. Jamestown was the first successful one. And they were a group of people who came over from England with a charter. Remember, that's another vocab term from last lesson. Basically a document or a contract giving some land to the English settlers and rules about how to set up a colonial government. Now, as we know, there were already native peoples here, but in Jamestown at least, they were mostly cooperative, and you probably heard the story of the first Thanksgiving before. So things started to work well with Jamestown. The word starts to spread that things are going well. Soon come the Pilgrims, and they land on Plymouth Rock here, which is off of the coast of Boston. Off the coast of Massachusetts, that is, a little bit south of Boston there. And we start to see another settlement in Plymouth, Massachusetts. This is where the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower and landed. Now, again, this is probably a term you've heard before, evokes an image of people dressed in black with buckles on their hats. They came over because they were seeking religious freedom. They believed in Christianity, as did most Europeans, but they had very strict rules and laws about what you could and could not do as part of celebrating the Christianity the way that they did it. And when they came over across the ocean, they did have laws that they had to follow given to them by the king, but they also created an agreement, and a special agreement called the Mayflower Compact, where all of the citizens on board agreed to an additional list of rules that they would follow in order to have a good colony. Now, I say citizens because really it was only signed by the men on board, but it was all of the men on the board, so at least it was unanimous amongst them. Women weren't allowed to sign it because at this time women were still treated as property. We see a couple over here in the corners of this picture not signing the document because at the time they were viewed as property of either their fathers or their husbands if they were married. But the Mayflower Compact did kind of start another tradition that we still hold near and dear to our hearts today. It established direct democracy where people were in charge of the rules that they had to follow. And we start to see this as the first example of self-government in America, where we are deciding what rules we're going to follow by. And even though that didn't include everybody, it was really just the white landowning males. At least it was a first step in self-government and us choosing our own rules. Well, Jamestown and Plymouth, they were great success stories. By about 50 years later, there were a total of 13 colonies that went all the way up to Massachusetts and the land that is now Maine, all the way down to Georgia. Each colony had its own governor that was appointed by the king. Usually it was one of the king's friends, or if somebody did something really nice for the king, they might be given some free land in exchange. And then besides that appointed governor, we also had some democracy going on, where we had a legislature, a group of lawmakers who met in each of the colony's capital cities here, and they helped make the rules for that colony. So, to recap, we start to have these traditions set forth by the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights. We also get some direct democracy for the first time with the Mayflower Compact, and we start to see more and more of the ideas that we hold near and dear to our hearts taking root in America. The British government basically allowed the colonies to do what they wanted as long as they still kept paying their taxes. And as the colonial governments grew, they started making more laws. They started doing more and more of their own thing. But England was a long way away. It took a long time to get across the ocean on boat. And England was pretty much busy with the rest of the empire and busy fighting wars with France. So they didn't really notice how independent and kind of standoffish we were being from them until it was too late. Next lesson, we're going to talk about what happens when Americans get sick and tired of the English colonies. We're going to talk about what the individual colonies started to do for themselves, and then we'll get into kind of why they decided they wanted to break away. Anyways, thank you all for listening today, and I will see you in the next lesson. Have a great day. Bye.